So welcome to another demo of Binubuo. This time we're going to look at, two things. One, we're going to look at how we can use it against Yugabyte. So since Yugabyte is Postgres compatible, it is almost completely compatible with the existing Postgres module. And what we'll do is we'll see how we can use two databases to actually move a existing table from one database to another. But instead of just moving the data one-to-one, we'll move the data as synthetic data. So we're connecting to a database in the Yugabyte cloud called Binubuo. This is our source database. And we'll make a connection to the target database called Binubuo for this demo. And now since it's in the cloud and it can't do basic connect, what we need to do is use a different way of initializing the Binubuo module. We need to pass the connection objects directly in there. So as you can see, we add the key and we add the full connection object directly in there. We will connect to the API server and we will connect to the database. So we just use the connect method here. And then we will proceed to add the secondary connection to our module or our Binubuo object. So that one we're going to use to as the target for our copy of a table. So if we can see now we have the module, we have two connections. We'll go to the Binubuo database. What we've installed here is the Pagila demo database from Postgres. So if we do a select count star from a table called customer, we can see that we have 599 rows, the standard number of rows from the data set. And if we just look at a few of those rows, we can see that, we have a store ID, we have some names, we have an email address. And if we go and look in our target database, we'll just validate that we don't have the table there right now. So customer table does not exist yet. So what we want to do is show how easy and fast Binubuo can create a synthetic copy directly in a different database. So what we'll do is we'll use the copy table command. We have a source table, customer, a target table, we'll call it the same, customer. The copy method, you can choose between quick fetch and dataset. We will choose dataset, and as you can see further on in this video, it actually gives us a lot more benefits. If it exists, we'll just say, in the target database, we'll just drop the table and recreate it. And we'll use the infer method and the sample data method to make sure that the data set we create is going to be as close to the type of data that exists in our primary database. And we say that the target database is secondary and we want 250 rows. So let's execute that. Now what it does is it actually looks inside the source database. It connects, but it looks at the metadata of the customer table. And it will start figuring out, okay, how many rows are in that table? What are the data types? What are the individual columns? And since we use the infer method and the sample data method, it will actually look inside those columns and look inside the statistics for those columns and try and figure out, okay, not only do I know it's a text column or a number column, can I sort of infer what type of text column it is, right? Is it a name? Is it an email address? What's the distribution of data values within that column? And it will go out and just do that for every single column in the table, and then it will create the data set, as you can see here. So now it's created a generator, so to speak, that can generate this type of data. And now it's created the table in the secondary database. So if we go to Binubuo where customer didn't exist, we can now see we have a customer table. It has 250 rows. And if we take a look at the data, we can hopefully see that it mimics pretty well the type of data from our source database. But it's not the data from our source database. It's synthetically created. It's going to be completely random in the sense that you can use it safely for tests or send it to developers. Now, one of the cool things is when we have that dataset method instead of quick fetch is that we also, for free, so to speak, get directly an API endpoint. Right? So to use the API endpoint, we need the unique URL part, which is a unique part of your URL for every single account on Binubuo, just to make sure that we don't just expose everything to everybody else. You still need to use the key as well, right? So anytime you access, you need to use the key, but for the custom data sets, you have to also put this unique URL in as part. But other than that, we call the customer dataset directly. We say we want 2 rows just to make sure that we don't fill the entire screen out. And if we look at the response from that, we can see, yep, just a standard REST endpoint that we can get synthetic data from now in any program we have that supports REST calls, and any number of rows that we need to do tests or whatever we need to do. Now, since we have that REST endpoint, we can also use that directly the next time we need to put data into our target database. So let's delete the rows from customer table and say, okay, we need a new set of, a fresh set of data. Now, instead of recreating the entire data set and spending all that time doing that, we can just use the existing one because it's already there. So as you can see, we've emptied out all the rows from the customer in the target database. What we'll do is we'll create the connection. We'll create a new instance of our Binubuo module, an object. We'll only connect to Binu2 this time, right? Because we don't want to connect to the source anymore. We don't need that. We have a data set that we can use directly. We will instantiate just like we do as always, right, with the API key, and we'll pass in the full connection object, so the target connection to Binu2, and we'll use the command called insert from dataset. So basically what we're doing is we say we have a dataset. The dataset is called customer. We want to insert it into a table. The table is called customer, and we want, let's say, 100 rows. So we'll put in 100 rows, and that's it. That's all we need to do now. Every time we need in our target database that we want some fresh data in there, either to run new tests or validate something differently. And now if we go back to Binu2, we can see that it has all the data that we asked for, and it looks exactly like the source target table. So the copy table method with the dataset option gives us the ability to not only just quickly create synthetic copies of our production data or our source data, but also have a REST endpoint that any developer can use at any time as long as they have the API key.